Chapter 404. After Immortal became a bloodthirsty demon dragon, one of his skills had also been upgraded. The blood dragon's eye had been upgraded to the demon dragon's eye. In addition to all the previous abilities of the blood dragon's eye, the demon dragon's eye also had another ability, a special deterrent to infected creatures. When Immortal activated the blood dragon's eye, the werewolves and blood breeds would not dare to move as long as he glanced at them. They would also obey Immortal's orders. This was the new ability of the blood demon's eye. Next, Immortal's body quickly shrank with a thought. The scales, giant wings, long tail, and sharp claws on his body all disappeared. He returned to his human form. However, when he transformed into his dragon form, the clothes on his body were torn apart, and he was now naked. Fortunately, there was no one around. He had to take out another set of clothes from the miniature world and put it on. At the same time, he sighed in his heart. Transforming into a dragon was powerful, but it was a bit of a waste of clothes. Then he went to the coordinates. Half an hour later, he had returned to the teleportation hall of the 10th hunting island. As soon as he appeared, 2 hunters from hunting island number 10 said to Immortal, "Brother Immortal, you're the leader of this hunting island." "Sir, according to the rules, each ticket can only stay on the 10th hunting island for 2 months. You've stayed on the 10th hunting island for 5 months and 3 days. If you exceed 2 months, you'll have to pay 10 times the amount. If you exceed 63 days, you'll have to pay 80,000 per day. After deducting the change, you'll have to pay 5 million. After Immortal became a bloodthirsty demon dragon, his vision had broadened a lot. His vision had far exceeded the flaming beginning continent. He was going to become an immemorial demon dragon in the future. Naturally, he would not care about such a small amount of money. Although the 10th hunting island was a bit too shady, they had already told him about it before going to the Bloodwolf Star, so it was not too bad. Most importantly, Immortal did not lack money. He nodded. "I'll pay now." The 2 hunters were stunned and looked at Immortal carefully. They thought that they would scare this guy when they said 5 million. They did not expect this guy to be so straightforward. It seemed that he was another rich young master. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on their faces. He hurriedly gestured towards Immortal, "Young master, this way please." One of them took Immortal to pay the bill while the other went to get the manager. In the face of such a rich young master, he had to inform the manager. Soon, the manager also walked over quickly. With a face full of smiles, he said, "Young master, I am the manager of the 10th hunting ground. My surname is Ma. You can call me Xiao Ma. I'm sorry, but we have rules on Hunting Island 10, and we have to follow them. But we're all humans, and we have to be humane. Therefore, I can give you a 20% discount. Just give me 4 million. Immortal did not stand on ceremony and paid 4 million yuan directly. Then, he walked away with a smile on the manager's face. This was the benefit of being rich. If he didn't have the money, Immortal would probably have forced him to leave. With Immortal's strength, no one would be able to stop him if he wanted to leave. However, there would be a lot of trouble. Now that he paid directly, not only would it save him a lot of trouble, but this guy would also have to flatter him with a face full of smiles. Although Immortal did not think that his words were true, everyone liked to hear good words. After all, it was good to be in a good mood. After leaving Hunting Island 10, Immortal returned to Hunting Island 1. Only then did he take Emma and her son out of Micro-World. When the people on Hunting Island 1 saw Immortal, they could not help but feel a little surprised. Because at this moment, Immortal seemed to have the faint domineering aura of a king. When they saw Immortal, they could not help but have the urge to worship him. Happy also came out to welcome him. For the past 5 months, she had been missing Immortal all the time. She missed him so much that she could not eat or sleep. She seemed to have lost a lot of weight. When she saw Immortal, she no longer cared about being reserved. She quickly stepped forward and threw herself into Immortal's arms. Leaning against Immortal's broad and warm chest, she could no longer hold back the tears in her eyes. They flowed down her cheeks and wet the clothes on Immortal's chest. She hugged Immortal tightly as if she was afraid that Immortal would leave again. Immortal also hugged Happy tightly. This time, He had been very busy during the 5 months he was away. However, as long as he was free, Happy's figure and her smile would appear in his mind uncontrollably. Moreover, if he had Happy by his side, he would not have fallen into the endless slaughter so easily. When he felt Happy's heartbeat, he finally spoke. "From now on, I'll take you wherever Brother Mo goes." When Happy heard that, tears blurred her eyes once again. She nodded heavily. When the people around them saw that, they quietly dispersed. They left the time for Mo and Happy. There was no specific time for the opening of the ancient dragon battlefield, only a general area. Therefore, Mo did not need to be too anxious. He stayed on Hunting Island number 1 for a while longer. After evolving into a bloodthirsty demon dragon, he could completely control his state of mind and would not go berserk again. However, after 5 months of continuous slaughter, he needed some time to calm down. Otherwise, it would not be a good thing if his murderous aura was too strong. It might even endanger the people around him. Therefore, he stayed on Hunting Island number 1 for a whole month. During this month, he did not think or do anything. Every day, he just accompanied Happy, watched the sunrise and sunset, listened to the wind, and listened to the sound of the sea. In such peaceful days, Emo's state of mind gradually calmed down. The murderous aura in his body also lessened by a lot. At the same time, the Heavenly Gold sect, which was ranked first in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud. The Great Elder's most talented disciple had been on Hunting Island number 10 for 5 months. In fact, in the 3rd month, they had already sent people to the Blood Wolf Star to cause chaos. The Blood Breeds and the werewolves were fighting. They thought that the disciple might have died in the war between the werewolves and the Blood Breeds. No one could be blamed for this. Therefore, the matter came to an end. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. There was a rich young master who stayed on Hunting Island number 10 for 5 months. After he returned, the news that he had paid a few million slowly spread. At the same time, Mo planned to go to the ancient dragon battlefield after staying on Hunting Island number 1 for a month. To go to the ancient dragon battlefield, a wormhole teleportation device was required. Mo had already obtained this teleportation device a long time ago. Right now, he only needed to activate it. Of course, this time he brought Happy with him. The two of them turned into bluish-white balls of light and disappeared from Hunting Island number 1. When they reappeared, the scene in front of them had changed. There was an undulating mountain range here. Mo used Dragon's Will to investigate. Within a radius of more than 300 kilometers, there were mountains of all sizes. Chapter 405. Mo used his Dragon's Will to investigate. Within a radius of hundreds of kilometers, there were mountains of all sizes. However, it was a little different from what Mo had imagined. In his imagination, the ancient dragon battlefield should be dilapidated, gloomy, and cold. But here, it was spring, flowers were blooming, and orioles were singing and swallows were dancing. It was a scene full of vitality. Seeing such a scene, Happy was naturally in a good mood. Mo was happy to see Happy, and he was also very happy. Mo took out the map of the ancient dragon battlefield and found that this was only the edge of the ancient dragon battlefield. The real ancient battlefield was still more than 300,000 kilometers to the west. He was not in a hurry to travel. He flapped his wings and flew forward slowly with Happy. He flew through the mountains full of wildflowers as if he was wandering in a painting. After flying for half a day, Mo saw that the sky was about to turn dark. He said in his mind, "System, sign in." Since he had come to the ancient dragon battlefield, Missouri did not want to go back in a short time. He wanted to go to every corner of the ancient dragon battlefield and sign in here. The system's voice immediately sounded in his mind, frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in location, periphery of the ancient dragon battlefield, 100,000 mountains, sign in reward, 10 strands of Dragon's Will. 10 strands of Dragon's Will for each sign-in was not bad. Although it was a little less, this was only the periphery of the ancient dragon battlefield. The closer he got to the center of the ancient dragon battlefield, the more good things he would get. Gradually, the sun slowly set in the west. Emosure planned to have dinner with Happy and rest on the spot. With Happy out this time, Emosure did not have to bring any dry food. He only brought ingredients. Wouldn't it be better to let Happy cook? Emosure took out the ingredients, and Happy began to get busy. Emosure helped Happy by the side. But at this moment, a figure appeared more than 300 meters to the west of them. This figure looked a little like a deer, but it had a pair of small dragon-like wings. It could not fly, but it could jump very high. Emosure could not recognize what kind of creature it was. However, he could detect that this creature had dragon's will. That's right, it wasn't psychokinesis or spiritual sense, but dragon sense. The creature hopped towards Emosure and the others. At the same time, the dragon will in its body spread out and headed straight for Emosure. Emosure checked its draconic sense and found that it had already reached level 3. It was only a level 3 dragon psyche, yet it wanted to attack Emosure. This was not something that Emosure would take seriously. His draconic will immediately counterattack and envelop the creature. In the blink of an eye, the dragon will of this creature was devoured. The creature's body instantly shriveled up. After a while, it turned into a dried corpse. A system notification popped up in Emosure's mind. Devoured level 3 dragon psyche, obtained 3 strands of dragon psyche. Dragon psyche, 13100000. Devouring this fellow's dragon will would allow Emosure to obtain 3 strands of dragon will. That made Emosure delighted. If there were more of these creatures, wouldn't his dragon will level up again? Just as he was thinking about this, another creature appeared more than 500 meters away. This creature also had a level 3 dragon will. However, it didn't look like the previous creature. Instead, it looked more like a walking tree. The tree was more than 10 meters tall, its branches swaying constantly as it shuttled through the forest. Although it didn't have eyes, its huge body didn't touch any other branches when it shuttled through the forest. It was very strange. At the same time, its dragon will also attacked Emosure. However, it was almost instantly devoured by Emosure. The body of the tree was also shrinking rapidly. After a while, it turned into a dried-up tree stump that was only about 3 meters tall. Another system notification popped up in Emosure's mind. Level 3 Draconic Sense devoured. Emosure has 3 strands of Draconic Sense. Draconic Sense 1610000. Following that, Emosure devoured a few ladybug monsters, a few monsters that looked like wildflowers, and even a rock monster. In short, these monsters came in all shapes and sizes. Emosure plundered the memories of these monsters and looked carefully. He found that these monsters' memories were very messy. Many of the monsters' memories were just simple scenes. However, Emosure had plundered many of these monsters' memories and finally understood why there were so many of these strange monsters. It turned out that on the ancient dragon battlefield, the Long Nian or Long Nian who died among the dragons would slowly disintegrate with the passage of time if they didn't have any special obsession. They would disintegrate into countless fragments. These fragments of Draconic Sense would unconsciously attach themselves to various other things. In the end, these things attached to the fragments of Draconic Sense would become all kinds of monsters. Most people thought that the ancient dragon battlefield was very dangerous. Even the periphery was very dangerous because they couldn't deal with these monsters. These monsters were not afraid of energy attacks or physical attacks. Only mental attacks could restrain them. However, their telekinesis was too strong. Those psychic masters would also have their telekinesis stolen under their mental attacks. Just this point alone was enough to scare off many people. Only those who were close to level 10 desolate hunters dared to wander around the ancient dragon battlefield at night. Those who only had the strength of a level 1 desolate hunter could only find a place to hide at night as soon as possible. Furthermore, if something went wrong and they were discovered, they would be killed by these monsters. Therefore, most level 1 desolate hunters didn't dare to enter the ancient dragon battlefield. In just one night, more than 300 level 3 monsters had appeared. This also made Emosure's Draconic Sense reach more than 900. As these monsters were still some distance away, Emosure killed them. Therefore, he didn't know that the forest was so dangerous at night. The next morning, they continued to fly west. It took them more than 5 days to reach the real entrance of the ancient dragon battlefield. At this time, Immortal's draconic sense had reached more than 4,700. The real entrance of the ancient dragon battlefield was guarded by Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. These Heavenly Gold Sect disciples were all level 5 desolate hunters. They guarded the entrance so that only Heavenly Gold Sect disciples or those who were related to the Heavenly Gold Sect could enter. At this time, they were discussing something. Hey, have you heard? Senior Bufan might not have been killed by the Blood Clan or the werewolves, but by someone from the Flaming Continent. Someone from the same batch as him who entered the 10th hunting ground. That's impossible. Who would be so bold as to kill a disciple of the Heavenly Gold Sect? Even in the entire Flaming Continent, there aren't many forces who would dare to kill an important disciple of the Heavenly Gold Sect. Another disciple shook his head. There are always exceptions. According to the information I received, at this point, the disciple paused. The other disciples were intrigued and asked anxiously, "Tell me. Why don't you tell me?" The disciple shook his head. It's useless. The cliff-cutter dog won't show mercy. Chapter 406. The Sky Gold Sect disciples were discussing among themselves. You said that someone dared to kill senior brother Bufan. Is that true? Of course it's true. Initially, everyone thought that they were killed by the Blood Clan and werewolves from the 10th hunting ground. However, a month ago, a fellow who went to the 10th hunting ground at the same time as senior brother Bufan actually returned from the 10th hunting ground after disappearing for 5 months. Our sect's Grand Elder has already gone to the 10th hunting ground to get information on that guy and check if he's suspected of harming senior brother Bufan. When the others heard this, they all came to a sudden realization. I knew it. Senior brother Bufan is a level 10 hunter and has a level 10 psychic master by his side. Moreover, he has many life-saving trump cards. How could he be killed by the Blood Clan and werewolves? If they really find out, that guy is dead. Not just him. Even his sect and family won't be able to escape. After all, senior brother Bufan is the Grand Elder's most valued disciple. Senior brother Bufan is the Grand Elder's most valued disciple. Even if an ordinary Sky Gold Sect disciple was killed, we won't let the murderer off. If it was in the past, Immortal would be worried when he heard these people's discussions. But now, when Immortal heard their discussion, he was actually looking forward to it. He was surprised. What was he looking forward to? Was he looking forward to a big fight with the Sky Gold Sect after they found out that he was the culprit? After a while, he found the reason for his anticipation. He was looking forward to only one thing: killing. There were hundreds of thousands of Sky Gold Sect disciples. Among them, there were also thousands of disciples who were desolate hunters. He should be looking forward to killing these Sky Gold Sect disciples. This should be the change in his personality after evolving into the bloodthirsty demon dragon. The bloodthirsty demon dragon's first thought when encountering any trouble was to kill. Killing to solve any problem was the bloodthirsty demon dragon's code of conduct. Although Immortal wasn't a real bloodthirsty demon dragon, he had more of a human nature. However, he still couldn't help but think of killing when encountering problems. It was just that Immortal had more of a human's rationality. Liking to kill was one thing, but being able to kill at this stage was another. Before they found out that it was him, he had to develop first. It wouldn't be too late to fight and kill when they found out that he was the one who did it. As he thought about it, Immortal brought him to the entrance. The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples all turned their heads when they saw someone approaching. Their first glance was, of course, directed at the woman. There was nothing strange about this. Any man who saw a man and a woman walking over at the same time would immediately pay attention to the woman. This is the nature of man as an animal. Of course, she could not rule out the fact that some men just like to look at other men. The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples' eyes lit up when they saw Happy. He couldn't help but take a few more glances. This girl was very beautiful, but she wasn't like those goddesses that made people flinch. She wanted to be the opposite, but she was like the sister next door, giving people a sense of closeness. Compared to this girl, the so-called beauties of the Heavenly Gold sect paled in comparison. Most importantly, however, the Heavenly Gold sect prided itself on being a righteous sect. Therefore, they were very strict with their disciples, at least on the surface. Therefore, they only took a few more glances and didn't have any other thoughts. Then they looked at Immortal. They were mostly surprised by Immortal and Happy's actions. Behind them was the main entrance to the ancient dragon battlefield. Only those who were desolate hunters and above could enter. Could it be that these two people had become desolate hunters at such a young age? If that was the case, wouldn't this person be very talented? At this time, Immortal was also secretly sizing up these people. In fact, he wasn't really sizing them up. Instead, he was sizing up the Heavenly Gold sect that they represented. He wanted to see what the Heavenly Gold sect was like from these people. Actually, the ancient dragon battlefield was discovered by the old senior from Yuzhou more than 500 years ago. Then, he set up a seal on the ancient dragon battlefield. Only those who were desolate hunters and above could enter. After that, he didn't hide anything. Instead, he announced the location of the ancient dragon battlefield and the method to enter. He also created some teleportation devices to the ancient dragon battlefield. It could be said that the old senior was absolutely selfless. However, as more and more people came to the ancient dragon battlefield, the ancient dragon battlefield was gradually occupied by the Heavenly Gold sect. Not only did the Heavenly Gold sect occupy the ancient dragon battlefield, but they also didn't allow people from other sects to enter. They treated the entire ancient dragon battlefield as their private property. Moreover, they even came up with a dignified reason. Many naive cultivators really thought that the Heavenly Gold sect was thinking about the cultivators of the 16 prefectures and didn't allow others to enter. However, anyone with a discerning eye knew that the Heavenly Gold sect was occupying the ancient dragon battlefield for themselves. As Immortal thought of this, he had already arrived in front of the Heavenly Gold sect disciples. The Heavenly Gold sect disciples stretched out their hands to stop Immortal. The Heavenly Gold sect has already said that no one is allowed to enter the ancient dragon battlefield without permission. Don't you know? Immortal sneered and was about to retaliate. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in the distant sky. His speed was so fast that it exceeded Immortal's imagination. He was just at the horizon a moment ago, but in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of him. He wasn't using flying hovershoes, but was standing on a 5-meter-long, extremely high-tech giant sword. When he landed, the temperature within a few kilometers seemed to have dropped by more than 10 degrees. Immortal didn't even need to see his face to know who he was. Han Jianxing, who froze the 16 prefectures with a single sword. In the entire 16 prefectures, he was probably the only one who used such a giant sword as a flying machine. The Heavenly Gold sect disciples naturally knew about Han Jianxing's reputation. They couldn't possibly not recognize Han Jianxing's giant sword. They hurriedly cupped their fists and bowed to Han Jianxing. Senior Han. Even though they were the #1 sect in the 16 prefectures, they didn't dare to rashly offend Han Jianxing. Although their sect also had great desolate hunters in charge. However, the reputation of freezing the 16 prefectures with a single sword wasn't to be taken lightly. Back when Han Jianxing had destroyed the 17 sects, there had been a total of 32 great desolate hunters in those sections. In the end, they had all been wiped out by Han Jianxing. Therefore, in the 16 prefectures, the upper echelons of every sect would warn their disciples that they could offend anyone except Han Jianxing. Han Jianxing ignored the Heavenly Gold sect disciples. Instead, he turned his head and glanced at Immortal. His mouth, which was covered by his beard, spat out a few words. Level 2 Desolate Hunter? Chapter 407. Han Jianxing's mustache covered his mouth as he spat out a few words. Level 2 Desolate Hunter? Although he didn't show any emotions on his face, he was still a little surprised. The last time he saw Immortal was only a level 5 Desolate Hunter. In just half a year, he had already become a level 2 Desolate Hunter. This speed could be considered heaven-defying. However, Han Jianxing was just a little surprised. He was also a prodigy and had seen all sorts of situations. Before his wife was killed, he was also a monster who could rise several levels in a year. However, after taking revenge for his wife, he didn't have the heart to continue cultivating. Therefore, his strength had been stagnant all these years. However, even if he didn't cultivate much, his strength had slowly risen from a level 1 Great Desolate Hunter to a level 2 Great Desolate Hunter. Many people couldn't reach the level of a Great Desolate Hunter even if they worked hard for their whole lives. Many Great Desolate Hunters didn't cultivate much, but they could rise by 1 level in 10 years. This showed the importance of talent. If he worked harder, he would probably be a level 7 or 8 Great Desolate Hunter. In another 10 years, he would be at the top of the continent. However, this wasn't what he wanted. Immortal nodded to Han Jianxing. Yes. I just advanced. Han Jianxing nodded slightly. Ignoring Immortal, he turned around and entered the ancient dragon battlefield. Stepping on his giant sword, he quickly disappeared from the ancient dragon battlefield. After Han Jianxing was completely gone, the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples turned around and looked at Immortal. However, when they looked at Immortal, their attitudes had undergone a 180-degree change. Little brother, you know Senior Han? Immortal nodded, yes. The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples looked at each other and cupped their hands to Immortal. Little brother, sorry about just now. If we knew you knew Senior Han, we wouldn't have stopped you. If you want to go to the ancient dragon battlefield, you can go anytime. Immortal sneered in his heart. These so-called righteous sects bullied the weak and feared the strong, and curried favor with those in power. However, he couldn't be bothered to care about this now. With Happy in tow, he walked straight into the great dragon's ancient battlefield. Behind him, the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples continued to speak. Little brother, it's very dangerous inside. You must be careful. Especially the north. You can't go there. Immortal's heart skipped a beat. He had seen the map of the ancient dragon battlefield before. Almost every place in the entire ancient dragon battlefield was clearly marked on the map. There were also signs indicating what dangers there might be. However, there was only the north side. There was no topography drawn, nor was there any indication of the dangers there. There were only 4 words written on it, not confirmed yet. It seemed that there was indeed something in the north. Immortal had already plundered the memories of the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. However, the disciples of the Heavenly Gold Sect could not recall what was in the north. Obviously, they didn't know either. Immortal could only stay away from the north for the time being. According to the map, the ancient dragon battlefield was divided into 5 zones according to the danger level. Zone 1 was the least dangerous zone, while Zone 5 was the most dangerous zone. The area of the 5th district was the entire northern region. Based on Immortal's character in the past, he would definitely go to Zone 1, which was the least dangerous zone. But now that Immortal had evolved into a bloodthirsty demonic dragon, he wasn't as cautious as before. Hence, he was more adventurous. He even looked forward to the adventure. Hence, he did not go to Zone 1, which was the least dangerous zone. Instead, he went straight to Zone 2, which was the closest to him. According to the map, Zone 2 should be one of the battlefields during the Great Ancient Dragon War. Since it was more dangerous here, Immortal let Happy enter the micro-world first. Then, he flapped his wings and arrived at Zone 2. It was the ruins of a huge city. It could be vaguely seen that this city used to be extremely large. It probably occupied an area of hundreds of square kilometers. Moreover, the buildings in the city were all tall and large. Obviously, this was not a city for humans to live in. Immortal guessed that it might have been built by the ancient dragon race to live in this city. However, this huge city was completely destroyed during the war. Now, only ruins were left and green vines were crawling all over them. On the surface, there was nothing here other than broken boulders, collapsed stone pillars, and collapsed stone walls. However, over the past few hundred years, many people had obtained useful things from the ancient dragon battlefield. For example, dragon scales that could be used to forge armor. Dragon teeth and dragon claws that could be used to forge weapons. There were even people who obtained sealed dragon blood and used it to modify their bloodline, increasing their realm and combat strength in an extremely short period of time. Immersive's dragons will spread out and carefully investigated the area with a radius of 350 kilometers. However, he did not find anything. Immersive was not discouraged at all. What he cared about was not these things. As long as he came here to sign in, he would be able to obtain a lot of good things. System, sign in. In his mind, the system's voice immediately replied frowny face sign in successful. Sign in location, Ancient Dragon Battlefield Zone 2. Sign in reward, Dragon Slaying Saber. Immersive almost spat out. Even the Dragon Slaying Saber came out? System, do you want to give me another heavenly sword? However, speaking of the Dragon Slaying Saber, Immersive's mind immediately conjured up a scene of him wearing a set of dazzling armor, carrying a dazzling golden saber on his shoulder, and a pair of incomparably gorgeous wings on his back. At the same time, there was a hidden message: as soon as you go online, you will be given a dragon slaying saber. 1/ for 99999999999, and each slash will drop a piece of top-grade equipment. Immersive couldn't help but smile. Then he checked the system backpack. Then he saw a saber. However, this saber was not golden or shiny. It looked like an ordinary saber. There were no decorations or patterns. Even the handle of the saber was wrapped in black cloth. It felt like the pig slaughtering knife that Immersive had seen in the village when he was young. However, this saber had one characteristic, and that was that it was big. The saber was more than 2 meters long. It was about a foot wide. If it was an ordinary person, it would probably be difficult for them to pick it up. Using such a saber, it was naturally impossible to have an infinite number of slashes and drop godly equipment with each slash. On the saber, there were the attributes of this saber: frowny-faced dragon-slaying saber, forged by the cold body of the demon's den, soaked in the egg liquid of the dragon-devouring worm. It can cause huge damage to the body of the dragon race, the energy body of the dragon race, and the soul of the dragon race. Immersive looked at these 2 lines of words and was secretly surprised. Not only could this dragon-slaying saber hurt the body of the dragon race, but it could also cause huge damage to the energy body of the dragon race and the soul of the dragon race. This was awesome. Chapter 408. The dragon-slaying saber was awesome, but Immersive felt that things were developing in a strange direction. He was a dragon, but the system gave him a dragon-slaying saber. Did he have to kill himself? Forget it, he would keep the dragon-slaying saber first. Then, Immersive continued to fly forward. During the day, there seemed to be nothing in the ancient dragon battlefield other than the ruins of the ancient city and the green vines. However, Immersive guessed that there might be monsters like the ones in the forest outside at night. After searching for more than half an hour, Immersive finally found a few people. They should be from the Skygold sect, Skywood sect, and Heavenly Water sect. Although the Skygold sect occupied the ancient dragon battlefield, the Skywood sect and Heavenly Water sect were from the same sect as the Skygold sect. Therefore, the disciples of these 2 sects could enter and leave the ancient dragon battlefield as they wished. At this moment, the disciples of the 3 sects were walking and stopping. They looked around from time to time or used their dragon psyche to investigate. They seemed to be looking for something. Immersive casually plundered the memories of a few of them and quickly understood what was going on. These people were looking for a wild beast called the spirit-engulfing beast. The spirit-engulfing beast loved to devour souls that were already dead but had yet to dissipate their psyche. The disciples of the 3 sects found a cave in the second zone. Using their psyche, they discovered that there might be some good things left behind by the ancient dragon era. However, there were also powerful dragon spirits inside, which were the souls of the dragon clan guarding it. There was a level 2 spiritual psyche master with them. However, the spiritual psyche master's psyche was slightly weaker than the dragon spirits. Therefore, they seemed to be looking for the spirit-engulfing beast to suppress the dragon spirits. Therefore, they planned to capture a spirit-engulfing beast to deal with the dragon spirits in the cave. Immersive had planned to go to the cave directly to look for the dragon spirits. If he devoured the dragon spirits, his spiritual psyche would increase again. However, he also wanted to see what the spirit-engulfing beast was. Therefore, he stopped and waited for the spirit-engulfing beast to appear. About 5 hours later, one of the spiritualists suddenly whispered, "The soul-devouring beasts have appeared. Everyone hide." The rest of them were hiding in the surrounding ruins. A moment later, a small thing about 30 centimeters long appeared. When Immortal saw this little thing, he was speechless. What the hell was this spirit-devouring beast? Wasn't it just a cat? It was a cat covered in black fur. From head to toe, there wasn't a single strand of stray hair. Under the sunlight, its black fur exuded a black luster, like black brocade. It looked around for a moment, then continued to jump forward. Its speed didn't seem to be fast, no different from an ordinary stray cat. Immortal activated the blood dragon's eye and looked over. Species, spirit-devouring beast. Level 1 mutated dire beast. Ability, devour spirit bodies, extremely effective against spirit bodies. It was indeed a spirit-devouring beast. This was very different from what Immortal had imagined. At this moment, the spirit-engulfing beast didn't seem to know that there was danger nearby. It was like a lazy cat that had just eaten and was about to go bask in the sun. Step by step, it slowly approached. Just as it entered the encirclement, the heavenly gold sect disciples pounced at it at the same time. Each of them threw a large net at the spirit-engulfing beast. However, at this moment, the spirit-engulfing beast suddenly rolled to the side like a lazy donkey. It dodged the attacks of the few people. Then, it suddenly turned around and dug up a handful of sand with its back claws. The few people behind it were about to chase after it, but they were stopped by the sand. They all cursed, "What a cunning beast!" As they spoke, they continued to chase after the spirit-engulfing beast. The spirit-engulfing beast leaped past another level 5 desolate hunter and extended its right claw. Whoosh! It left 3 deep claw marks on the level 5 desolate hunter's face. Each mark was so deep that bone could be seen. Then, the spirit-engulfing beast turned into a black shadow and leaped away. It was a stark contrast to its lazy behavior just now. Immortal couldn't help but be surprised by the spirit-engulfing beast's reaction speed. This little thing looked like a cat, but its reaction speed was much faster than a cat's. The few people who had surrounded it were all level 5 desolate hunters. However, the spirit-engulfing beast had managed to escape. The desolate hunter whose claw was scratched covered the deep wound on his face and wiped the blood off his face. He was furious and cursed, "Damn it, I'm going to kill you." As he spoke, he condensed an energy weapon. Whoosh! A thick red and white beam of light shot out from the desolate hunter's energy weapon. Boom! A huge crater with a diameter of more than 10 meters appeared in front of the spirit-engulfing beast. The spirit-engulfing beast was shocked and quickly fled in another direction. Seeing this, the rest of the people quickly advised, "Are you crazy? We're here to catch it, not kill it. If you kill it, how are we going to go to the catacombs?" The desolate hunter seemed to be an impatient person. He cursed, "I've had enough. If we don't kill it, it's going to kill us all. We've been here for more than 20 days to catch this beast. Even if I kill it today, I won't let it escape." As he spoke, he attacked the spirit-engulfing beast again. A huge crater appeared where the spirit-engulfing beast was. However, the spirit-engulfing beast jumped away again. The desolate hunters seemed to have gone crazy. "Damn it, die!" Boom, 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 boom. Beams of energy shot out continuously. Huge craters appeared one after another. The spirit-engulfing beast seemed to have nowhere to run. It could only run forward. It ran a big circle around the desolate hunters. The desolate hunter, on the other hand, used his energy to create a big circle. This large circle of craters was connected together. From the air, it looked like a string of pearls strung together. It was at this moment. Boom! The ground suddenly shook. To be precise, the ground inside the string of pearls was shaking. Then, boom! Suddenly, a 20-meter-tall magma pillar spurted out of a large crater. Then, pillars of magma spewed out from the rest of the pits as well. Boom, 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 boom. There were more than 50 lava pillars surrounding the desolate hunters. It was as if there were more than 50 fountains surrounding the desolate hunters. However, these fountains were not spewing water. Instead, they were spewing hot lava pillars. Moreover, the lava pillars were getting thicker with every passing second. At first, it was only about a meter tall. In just 3 seconds, it had grown to more than 5 meters thick. The desolate hunters who were surrounded by the lava pillars were shocked. Chapter 409. The pillars of fire around them shot up dozens of meters high and became thicker and thicker. The scorching hot lava fell to the ground. The hunters' faces changed drastically when they saw this. He hurriedly condensed an energy light shield to block the falling lava. But at that moment, as the pillars of fire grew thicker and thicker, the ground in the center began to shake and collapse. Those people hurriedly tried to fly in all directions. But when they looked up, they saw that the pillars of fire around them had joined together to form a circular wall of fire that completely surrounded them. The ground continued to collapse. Below them was the boiling lava. There was also a large amount of lava falling from above. There was no way for them to escape. Finally, after a series of screams, the ground under their feet completely collapsed. They had already activated their hoverboards. However, the scorching lava that kept falling from the sky kept smashing down on their energy shields. Although the defensive power of their energy shields wasn't bad, under the intense heat, their energy consumption was also extremely fast. Soon, their energy shields became thinner and thinner. Finally, they cracked and shattered. The 4 of them were smashed into the lava below by the lava that fell from above their heads. They died without a complete corpse. Not even a speck of dust remained. After doing all this, the spirit-devouring beast stuck out its tongue and licked its paws. Then, it used its paws to wash its face. Then, it continued to move forward leisurely. Immortal was astonished when he saw this. This spirit-devouring beast was really smart. It was only a level 2 mutated dire beast, but it had relied on its understanding of the terrain and its cunning to kill the 4 level 5 hunters. It was rare to see such a smart mutant wild beast. If he could tame this spirit-devouring beast, it might be of use in the future. At that moment, due to the collapse of the ground, the wall of fire was quickly decreasing. Immortal checked the spirit-devouring beast's location. He teleported to the front of the spirit-devouring beast. Immortal suddenly appeared in front of the spirit-devouring beast. The spirit-devouring beast was shocked. It turned around and tried to escape. Immortal immediately used his dragon will to suppress the spirit-devouring beast. The spirit-engulfing beast was instantly immobilized. It looked at Immortal, its eyes filled with fear and surprise. Immortal reached out to pick up the spirit-engulfing beast. But at that moment, the spirit-devouring beast's claws suddenly shot out. He reached out to grab Immortal's hand. Immortal was also shocked and quickly retracted his hand. The spirit-engulfing beast took the opportunity to turn around and flee. With a single leap, he was already more than 20 meters away. Immortal was a little surprised. The spirit-devouring beast wasn't afraid of his dragon will. Moreover, this guy was too cunning. He clearly wasn't afraid of his dragon will, but he still pretended to be suppressed by it and didn't move at all. When he let down his guard, it suddenly attacked him. Although this fellow's level was low, and his strength was weak, but it was definitely not to be underestimated. At this moment, just as it was about to escape, Immortal once again teleported in front of it. But at this moment, he felt the ground beneath his feet become empty. He was actually falling down. It turned out that there was a 5-meter-wide pipe under his feet. It was just that it was previously covered by a thick layer of vines. Logically speaking, even if there was nothing at the bottom, Immortal should have been able to detect it with his dragon will. But he couldn't detect it. It seemed that this ancient dragon battlefield was indeed very strange and dangerous. Fortunately, Immortal didn't retract his blood dragon wings. He flapped his wings and flew out of the pipe. He floated in the air, looking down at the spirit-engulfing beast that was fleeing on the ground. He wanted to steal its memory and see what it was afraid of. But he realized that he couldn't steal its memory at all. It turned out that this guy was the nemesis of soul and telekinesis. Any telekinesis or soul skills were ineffective against it. Even if Immersive's dragon will was 10 times or 100 times stronger, it still wouldn't have any effect on it. Immersive frowned slightly. Could it be that he couldn't even deal with this little thing? Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. In the next moment, the long way on his body suddenly spread out. At the same time, he opened his mouth. He let out a long but domineering dragon roar. Roar. This dragon roar wasn't one of Immersive's skills, nor was it a sound that Immersive imitated. It was a real dragon roar. He had now become a bloodthirsty demonic dragon. Naturally, he could let out a dragon roar. Even if he was in human form, he could still let out a dragon roar without any hindrance. This dragon roar spread over a radius of tens of kilometers. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold Sect, Heavenly Wood Sect, and Heavenly Water Sect were all shocked when they heard this dragon roar. This was the ancient dragon battlefield, and the souls of those giant dragons would often let out dragon roars at night. But this was the first time that a dragon roar had suddenly appeared in broad daylight. Could it be that the souls of those giant dragons could already come out in broad daylight? Below Immersive, the spirit-engulfing beast heard this dragon roar and immediately prostrated on the ground subconsciously. In addition, Immersive's long way had spread out. The spirit-engulfing beast felt the fear that came from the bottom of its heart and began to tremble. At first, it didn't even dare to raise its head. After a while, it slowly raised its head and looked at Immersive. It saw that there was still a human in the sky, not a giant dragon. The spirit-engulfing beast was puzzled. Could it be that it was hallucinating? But then again it made sense. Giant dragons had been extinct for millions of years. How could a giant dragon appear here again? But the chill that came from the bottom of its heart still made it afraid to run away. At this moment, Immersive lowered his altitude. He asked, "Are you willing to submit to me?" Although he wasn't sure if this little guy could speak or if it could understand his words, but with such a high IQ, it should be able to understand. As expected, after Immersive finished speaking, the spirit-engulfing beast's eyes rolled a few times. It seemed to hesitate for a moment before it nodded. Then, it lowered its head and prostrated on the ground, as if it was surrendering. However, Immersive saw that this guy didn't look very obedient. He immediately warned it. "If you dare to betray me, I have 100 ways to destroy you." As he said that, he waved his right hand. A blast of cold air instantly spread out. It covered a radius of several kilometers. Even the magma that had just appeared on the ground was directly frozen. A thick layer of ice appeared on top of the magma. This was a skill that Immersive had acquired a long time ago, the Black Ice Dragon Breath. But because of the lack of energy in his body, he had never used it. Now that he had transformed into a bloodthirsty demon dragon, the energy in his body was much more abundant than that of an ordinary desolate hunter. That was why he dared to use it. When he was in his dragon form, he directly breathed out cold air from his mouth. When he was in his human form, he released cold air from his hands. Chapter 410. Although Immersive had tamed the spirit-engulfing beast, he knew that it was not sincere. It was just afraid of his tyrannical power and had submitted to him temporarily. However, Immersive was not worried at all. As he said, although the spirit-engulfing beast was cunning, Immersive had the memory plunder skill. Furthermore, it wasn't just once, but an unlimited number of times. Therefore, Immersive only needed to plunder its memory once to know what it was up to. Therefore, Immersive was not worried at all. He brought the spirit-engulfing beast and flew toward the disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect. In a short while, he arrived at the disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect. On the ground, between the green vines, there was a hole that only one person could enter at a time. Immersive used his dragon will to probe, but he could not find anything. There were about 50 disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect, Skywood Trisect, and Skywater Trisect guarding the cave. Immersive also sensed that there were more than 200 disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect searching for the spirit-engulfing beast within a radius of 350 kilometers. Emo looked at the spirit-engulfing beast that was panting after chasing him. He could not help but feel a little satisfied. Soon he was above the cave. Around the catacombs, the 30-odd celestial gold trisect disciples had also discovered Emo. At first, they were wary of Emo. However, someone soon recognized Emo. Isn't this the guy who is related to Han Jianxing? Hearing that, a few people turned on their multifunction watches. When the disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect at the entrance of the ancient dragon battlefield saw that Emo was related to Han Jianxing, they had already sent Emo-Shi's image to all the disciples of the metal, wood, and water sects. They warned the disciples of the other 3 sects to avoid conflict with this person. Soon, the other disciples compared Emo-Shi's image with the person in person and nodded. Yes, that's him. What is he doing here? Did he discover the cave too? While they were talking, someone discovered the spirit-engulfing beast. Damn, it's the spirit-engulfing beast. So many people have been searching for him for days, but to no avail. I didn't expect him to be here. Everyone, surround it from all sides. Don't let it escape. Everyone decided to take action. At this moment, Emo slowly descended from the sky. The spirit-devouring beast had long since discovered the intentions of the heavenly gold 3 sects. It hurriedly came to Emo-Shi's side and rubbed its body against Emo-Shi's leg. Meow. The people from the celestial gold trisect exchanged glances when they saw this. Was this his? According to their usual style of doing things, they would naturally come up with a good excuse to claim the spirit-engulfing beast as their own. But not today. This spirit-engulfing beast belonged to this guy. If they were to offend this guy, it would be the same as offending Han Jianxing. Even though the celestial gold, celestial wood, and celestial water sects were the top 3 sects in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud, they would never want to provoke Han Jianxing. Moreover, they had yet to find out what treasures were in the catacombs. It would be unwise to provoke such a powerful being for a catacombs that they had yet to explore. However, they were unwilling to give up on the catacombs just like that. Therefore, the leader of the Celestial Gold Sect disciples, a middle-aged man in his 50s, asked, "Young man, this catacombs was discovered by the Celestial Gold Sect, Celestial Wood Sect, and Celestial Water Sect. We have been guarding here for 3 days, but we haven't found a spirit-devouring beast that can restrain a dragon's soul. Since you have a spirit-devouring beast, why don't we work together and enter the catacombs together? If we find anything, we'll each take half. What do you think?" The 3 sects were afraid of Han Jianxing's reputation, so they agreed to take half with Emo. Otherwise, if it were anyone else, the spirit-devouring beast would have been taken away. Emo-Shi's heart skipped a beat. He nodded and said, "That's great." Emo-Shi's thought was that they had yet to find out what was in the catacombs. If he went down rashly, it would be very dangerous. On the other hand, with these cannon fodders, he could save a lot of trouble. As for taking half with both sides, it was naturally impossible. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is also mine. How could Emo-Shi share it with others? The disciples of the Celestial Gold Sect, Celestial Wood Sect, and Celestial Water Sect all heaved a sigh of relief. The Celestial Gold Sect disciple in his 50s acted as if he knew Emo-Shi well. He laughed and said, "Brother, it's our honor to work with you. Let me introduce myself. I'm Changbai Shan, a 3rd-generation disciple of the Celestial Gold Sect. Young man, you seem to be on good terms with Senior Han Jianxing." Obviously, this guy wanted to use words to trick Emo-Shi and figure out the relationship between Emo-Shi and Han Jianxing. If their relationship was not as good as they thought, they would have nothing to worry about. Emo-Shi heard him and said indifferently, "We just know each other." It was an understatement, but the other party could not figure it out. Changbai Shan was secretly surprised. This kid looked young and harmless, but in fact he was very shrewd. He seemed to inadvertently turn around and give the people behind him a signal to be more vigilant. Then he turned back to Emo-Shi and laughed. "We wanted to know Senior Han, but we didn't have the chance. Brother, it's really enviable that you know Senior Han. Next, let's discuss how to explore the catacombs. What do you think?" Emo-Shi nodded. "Very good. Next, they discussed for about an hour about how to lock themselves up. In the end, they decided that Immortal would take the spirit-engulfing beast and 30 people would protect Immortal and the spirit-engulfing beast. They would enter the catacombs first. Immortal did not have any objections. He put the spirit-engulfing beast into the catacombs first, then jumped in himself. The other 30 people followed in one after another. Chang Baishan sent a message to the 200 or so celestial gold sect disciples nearby to guard the catacombs and prevent other dangers from approaching. Immortal entered the cellar and used his dragon will to explore. He saw that the catacombs were connected in all directions. There were dozens of holes that led to all directions. Each tunnel was about 2 meters in diameter. Immortal did not find anything special in these maps. He led the spirit-engulfing beast and walked slowly along one of the tunnels. The 30 or so people behind him followed Immortal, moving forward cautiously. After walking less than 20 meters, Immortal sensed a powerful dragon will coming toward him. This dragon will was not just one, but hundreds and thousands of dragon wills gathered together. It was so huge that even Immortal felt scared. Although Immortal's dragon will devouring skill could theoretically ignore the strength of the opponent's dragon will. However, this was not just a simple dragon will, but a huge dragon will that was mixed with the soul of a giant dragon. Chapter 4:11. There was a difference between a dragon spirit and a dragon will. A dragon will was a pure giant dragon's telekinesis, or a pure giant dragon's soul. But a dragon spirit was a dragon will that contained a huge amount of energy. So Immortal couldn't use dragon will to devour these dragon spirits directly. Those huge dragon spirits were coming towards Immortal and the others from the depths of the cave. The disciples of the heavenly gold sect beside Immortal all changed their expressions. Especially their level 1 spiritual psychic, who was much more sensitive to dragon will than ordinary people. So he was even more frightened. Soon, that huge dragon spirit had already rushed out from the depths of the cave. Immortal and the others looked forward. In the dark cave, a faint blue light suddenly appeared and filled the entire cave, rushing towards them like a flood. This was a dragon spirit formed by a mixture of dragon will and energy. And this wasn't the dragon spirit of one giant dragon, but the dragon spirits of hundreds and thousands of giant dragons. It swept away everything in its way, rushing towards Immortal and the others like breaking dried weeds and rotten wood. It was as if it wanted to tear them all to pieces in an instant. At this moment, none of them could escape. They didn't even have time to use the wormhole teleportation device. Of course, except for Immortal. Immortal could teleport out of the cave. But it wasn't necessary. When the enormous dragon spirit, which almost filled the entire cave, rushed towards Immortal and the others, Immortal and the others were shocked. While everyone else's eyes were filled with fear, the spirit-devouring beast beside Immortal's eyes were shining with excitement. It suddenly opened its huge mouth, and a dozen snake-like tentacles came out of its mouth. These tentacles instantly became thicker and longer. At the tip of each tentacle was a bloody mouth. These big mouths opened one after another and tried to devour the dragon spirit. Roar! Roar! Suddenly, a dozen roars came from within the dragon spirit. If it was an ordinary person, they would think that the dragon spirit was about to show its power. But Immortal, who had become a bloodthirsty demon dragon, clearly knew that the dragon spirit was afraid. They wanted to turn around and escape. But it was too late. More than a dozen mouths suddenly stretched forward. He divided the dragon spirit into a dozen portions and ate them. Those dragon spirits struggled to escape, but those huge mouths seemed to have an extremely strong suction force that sucked those dragon spirits in. Cries of agony continued to ring out from these huge mouths. In the next instant, all of the tentacles returned to the spirit-engulfing beast's mouth. The spirit-engulfing beast burped in satisfaction. Meow. Then, it licked its lips, licked its claws, and continued forward. Everyone behind him, including Immortal, exclaimed in their hearts. They only knew that the spirit-engulfing beasts were the bane of dragon spirits, but they didn't think that they would be so effective. In their opinion, these dragon spirits were so powerful that they didn't even have the thought of attacking. However, in front of the spirit-engulfing beast, it was as easy as swallowing a mouthful. The disciples of the Heavenly Metal Sect, Heavenly Wood Sect, and Heavenly Water Sect looked at each other, secretly delighted. With the help of the spirit-engulfing beasts, they no longer had to worry about the dragon spirit in the cave. Next, they continued to move forward. Along the way, they encountered another 3 dragon spirits. In the end, all of them were swallowed by the spirit-engulfing beast. Immortal was shocked. Just how big was the spirit-engulfing beast's body? Not only could it store so many dragon spirits, but it could also store so much dragon spirit energy. However, Immortal soon discovered something. After the spirit-engulfing beast swallowed the dragon spirits, it didn't store all of them in its body. Instead, there seemed to be some kind of space in its body. All of the dragon spirits had entered that space. Most of the dragon spirits' energy had also entered that space, leaving only a small portion to nourish the spirit-engulfing beast's body. This reminded Immortal of the spirit-engulfing beast in the Marvel movies he had seen in his previous life. The spirit-engulfing beast and the spirit-engulfing beast had the same effect. In other words, this was the author's idea to copy the spirit-engulfing beast. Of course, the author could also shamelessly say that this was a tribute. Next, they continued to go deeper into the cave. There were many forks in the cave. In the beginning, they had to discuss which path to take when they reached a fork. However, as more and more forks appeared, they couldn't be bothered to discuss any further. Most of the time, they just randomly picked a path or went down whichever path they liked. Tiny claw marks could be seen on every fork in the road. There must have been some kind of creature living here in the past. It was most likely a young dragon. After wandering around the forks for more than 2 hours, they still didn't find anything. Immortal and the spirit-engulfing beast would occasionally use their telekinesis to probe deeper into the cave. However, they would always be hindered by the powerful telekinesis of the dragon spirits. They didn't know how many dragon spirits there were in this cave. Immortal suddenly had an idea in his mind. After the spirit-engulfing beast devoured the telekinesis of the dragon spirits, it stored them in the space inside its body. Was there a way to make it spit out the dragon spirits for him to devour in the future? However, this was not the time to think about this. They continued to explore the cave for more than an hour before they finally arrived at a huge cave. From the top to the bottom, this cave was at least 100 meters tall. At its longest point, it was about 2 kilometers long. At its widest point, it was more than 500 meters wide. However, such a huge cave didn't seem very spacious. On the contrary, it was very crowded. This was because this huge cave had been completely occupied by the sparkling blue dragon spirit. When these dragon spirits discovered Immortal and the others' intrusion, they were all very angry. They all let out dragon roars and attacked Immortal and the others. The dragon spirits' attacks were of the psychic type. Naturally, the human desolate hunters had no way of resisting such a mental attack. Even the spirit-engulfing beast and the Long Yen Immortal couldn't do anything under such a powerful psychic attack. At this point, they could only rely on the spirit-engulfing beast. The spirit-engulfing beast lived up to their expectations. It stretched out its tentacles and kept probing in all directions. Every time it probed, a large number of dragon spirits would be devoured. It was as if a naughty child was constantly opening his mouth to bite off a hole in a birthday cake. At first, these dragon spirits didn't seem to care. After all, these dragon spirits were far stronger than these humans. Even if more dragon spirits were devoured, they would eventually be able to suppress these humans. However, they didn't expect the spirit-engulfing beast to be so powerful that it was beyond their imagination. Every time the spirit-engulfing beast opened its mouth, it would devour a large number of dragon spirits. Over time, all of the dragon spirits here would be devoured by the dragon spirits. Chapter 4:12. The dragon spirits wanted to devour these humans. But soon they realized that they were wrong. Their real opponent wasn't these humans, but that inconspicuous cat. And they couldn't even fight back in front of this tiny cat. None of their attacks had any effect on this cat. Mental attacks, ineffective. Energy attacks, ineffective. It was as if this cat was born to counter their dragon spirits. Seeing that this inconspicuous cat had already devoured 1/3 of their dragon spirits, the dragon spirits felt a sense of danger. They didn't dare to fight against the devouring beast anymore. Instead, they went into the hundreds and thousands of caves around them. Someone suggested bringing the soul-devouring beast to kill all the dragon spirits in the caves. But it was quickly rejected by the others. Don't forget that we're here to look for treasures, not to kill these dragon spirits. That person had no choice but to give up. Then, all of them started searching for the so-called treasures in the cave. At first glance, although the cave was huge, it was empty. In terms of treasure hunting, Immortal and the level 1 spiritual psyche master had a huge advantage. Immortal used his dragon psyche to scan the surroundings. He didn't find anything here. The spiritual psyche master didn't find anything useful either. Next, everyone began to conduct a carpet search of the place. After all, they had taken so many risks to come here. If they concluded that there were no treasures here just by looking, none of them would be satisfied. In the end, after a search, he finally found something. A Sky Gold sect disciple who was searching suddenly stopped in his tracks. He stomped the ground under his feet. Bang bang. A different sound came from the ground. That Sky Gold sect disciple said to everyone, "It's empty." When the others heard this, they also gathered around. That disciple used a dagger and carefully scraped the ground under his feet. Soon, they found a huge stone slab that was about 20 meters long. Everyone cleaned up the dust and rocks on the stone slab and found that there were 2 huge pull tabs on the side of the stone slab. It took a lot of effort for them to pull the ring and open the huge stone slab. Looking down from here, it was another tunnel. Using dragon will to investigate, there were still many dragon spirits below. Let the spirit-devouring beast go first. The dragon spirits below seemed to be much more ferocious than the ones above. However, in the face of the spirit-engulfing beast, no matter how ferocious the dragon spirit was, there was nothing to worry about. The spirit-engulfing beast extended a dozen or so tentacles and devoured most of the dragon spirits here. The remaining dragon spirits hurriedly fled. What a joke! If he didn't run now, was he supposed to stay and wait for death? After all the dragon spirits left, everyone continued to explore the things here. This cave was about the same size as the one above. However, the cave here didn't seem so spacious. This was very strange. It was clearly the same layout, but the people above felt that it was very spacious. However, when they reached the bottom, they didn't find it spacious at all. Because in this cave, there were many things scattered on the ground. There were weapons, shields, gems, and the like. When the Heavenly Gold sect disciples saw this, their eyes lit up. There was finally something good. A Heavenly Gold sect disciple said, "Everyone, search carefully." They spread out and searched carefully on the ground and the surrounding cave walls. These weapons, shields, and gems all had one thing in common. As long as the dust was wiped off, they would become shiny and dazzling. The swords and shields were inlaid with gold and silver, not to mention the gems. It seemed that the dragon's fondness for shiny things had started since ancient times. From all the signs, this should be a giant dragon's nest. It was a mother dragon with a few baby dragons. These shiny things were like toys that the mother dragon collected for the baby dragons. These weapons inlaid with gold and silver were basically useless to the hunters. However, it didn't take long for these people to find 2 swords. On the surface, these 2 swords seemed to be similar to the other inlaid swords. However, if one used mind power to investigate, one would find that these 2 swords had traces of energy washing over them. Upon closer inspection, one would find that these 2 swords had been washed over by energy all year round. Thinking about it, it was very likely that these 2 swords could be used in battle by directly injecting energy into them. After injecting energy into them, the combat power of these 2 swords would be greatly increased. One had to know that hunters could at most release energy through energy weapons. It was basically impossible for them to add energy to other weapons. However, with these 2 swords, it was very likely that they could directly add energy to their weapons. Therefore, these two swords were basically treasures in the eyes of these hunters. However, to Immortal, they were equivalent to trash. He was already able to add energy to any part of his body long ago. He could do it with his claws, giant axes, fists, and so on. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect were still a little worried that Immortal would snatch these two swords from them. At that time, would they give in or not? However, seeing that Immortal didn't seem to have any intention of snatching these two swords, they were relieved. Next, two disciples of the Heavenly Wood sect and the Heavenly Water sect also found a few things. Immortal was not interested in these so-called treasures. In his mind he said, "System, sign in." To him, no treasure was as practical as the system's reward. The system's voice quickly sounded frowny face sign in successful. Sign in location, underground dragon cave. Sign in reward, dragon soul true body. He looked carefully at the skill description. Dragon soul true body. Normally hidden in the body, the dragon soul true body will be released during battle. 100-meter tall dragon phantom will appear behind the user, and their combat power will increase tenfold. It will also create a strong deterrent effect on the enemy. When Immortal saw this, he laughed inwardly. Isn't this the martial soul true body? He actually didn't think much of the dragon soul true body's increase in combat power. After all, the upper limit of his combat power was the sea dragon clone. The sea dragon clone had already reached the level of a level 1 evolved wild beast. It was equivalent to a level 1 grand desolate master. Therefore, this tenfold increase in combat power was dispensable to him. On the contrary, the strong, deterrent effect made him very satisfied. Many times, when he couldn't attack, he needed to deter the other party. This dragon soul true body was very impressive. Just imagine how shocking it would be if a person suddenly released a 100-meter tall dragon phantom right in front of you. Chapter 4:13. After obtaining the dragon soul true body, Immortal remained calm and collected as he continued to search the area. At this moment, a Sky Gold sect disciple discovered a fist-sized ball-shaped object on the ground. More than half of it had sunk into the ground. Although it was covered in a thick layer of dust, it still looked shiny. He was delighted. He had found a treasure. He immediately rushed over and picked it up. But after picking it up, he realized that it was just a shard. It was supposed to be a ball-shaped object. Now, only 1/3 of it was left. No matter how good an object was, it was worthless when it was broken into pieces. He took a closer look at it and passed it to the spiritual psyche master. The spiritual psyche master examined it carefully for a while but didn't find anything. He shook his head and said, "It's useless." The Sky Gold sect disciple smiled bitterly and cursed, "Damn it." He threw the shard to the side. It was about to hit the wall. However, at this moment, a figure appeared and caught the item. It was none other than Immortal. He caught the item and was secretly delighted. When the Sky Gold sect disciple checked it, he had used his dragon consciousness to check it. The composition of this object was exactly the same as the Dragon Ball shard he had obtained before. Obviously, it was also a Dragon Ball shard. These people didn't know what it was and threw it away like trash. It was his now. Thinking of this, he kept the Dragon Ball shard. The Sky Gold sect disciple and the level 1 spiritual psyche master were both shocked when they saw Immortal's action. Did they make a mistake? Both of them were secretly regretting it. Then, they thought, how could something in the underground dragon cave be ordinary? They were the ones who had found it, but they had thrown it away like trash. This kid had taken advantage of them. They were really too stupid. But they didn't want to admit that they were too stupid. They looked around and didn't see any other disciples. They pretended that nothing had happened. Most importantly, they didn't know what it was. They didn't want to fall out with someone who was related to Han Jianxing over an unknown object. Immortal kept the Dragon Ball shard and continued to search around. Hopefully, he could find another Dragon Ball fragment. At that time, the 3 Dragon Ball fragments would be able to form a complete Dragon Ball. However, they didn't find anything useful in the underground dragon cavern. This caused everyone to feel slightly disappointed. Xiaochen found 2 swords in such a huge underground dragon cave. He felt somewhat dissatisfied. However, Immortal was already quite satisfied. 1 Dragon Ball fragment was already a great harvest. Not to mention, the spirit-engulfing beast had devoured so many dragon spirits. According to Immortal's knowledge, after the spirit-engulfing beast devoured the dragon spirits, it would split them into 2 parts. Part of it was energy for him to absorb. The other part was the dragon will, which was stored in the space within its body. If he could find a way to make it spit out all the dragon senses it had devoured, he might be able to raise his dragon senses by 2 or even 3 levels. This was also one of Immortal's great gains. At this point, there was nothing of value to be found here. However, on the walls of this huge cave, there were hundreds and thousands of holes with diameters of about 5 meters. It was not a small task to check all the hundreds and thousands of holes. These disciples of the Heavenly Gold Trisect were planning to use their advantage in numbers to turn this place upside down. However, Immortal didn't have such patience. There were a total of 4 districts in the ancient dragon battlefield, and each district wasn't small. If they had to turn every place upside down, they would never be able to search this place for the rest of their lives. Therefore, Immortal decided to leave this place temporarily. At most, he would wait for these people to finish searching this place and then plunder their memories to see if there was anything good. If there wasn't, then so be it. If there was, then he would just snatch it. Therefore, Immortal said to the leader of the group, "Now that most of the dragon spirits in this cave have been devoured, if you want to continue searching this cave, then continue. I have other things to do, so I'll take my leave first." Hearing this, the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples couldn't stop him. They could only bid farewell to Immortal. After that, they continued searching here while Immortal led the spirit-engulfing beast out of the cave. At the same time, at the entrance of the cave. Among those people, the multifunction watches of over 70 Heavenly Gold Sect disciples rang at the same time. They had received a video message. They all opened the video message. It was the Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect. The Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect was furious. "All Heavenly Gold Sect disciples, listen up. Our Heavenly Gold Sect disciple, Ibufan, has been killed and the biggest suspect has been identified. It's this person." As he spoke, a person's portrait appeared beside him. It was Immortal. The Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect said, "This person's name is Immortal. If you see him, report immediately and capture him. Wait for me to come and deal with him." The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples at the entrance of the cave were all stunned when they saw Immortal's portrait. "He looks like him." "Yes, he does look like him. Could it be the same person?" "I think it's possible." These people had only seen Immortal once and weren't sure. "Why don't we report this to the Great Elder?" a disciple suggested. Another disciple immediately retorted, "Are you stupid? We're not sure if it's him. If it's him, it'll be good. If it's not him, the Great Elder is angry now. If we report it rashly, won't we be asking for trouble?" "You're right. It's a pity that we didn't record his image just now. Otherwise, we'll know if it's him. There's no signal in the catacombs. Those disciples probably haven't received the Great Elder's message. When that guy comes up, we'll take a few more photos of him and send them to the Great Elder so that he can identify him himself." "That's right. If it's really that guy, we'll have provided an important clue and have made a contribution. If it's not him, then it's the Great Elder's own fault. He can't blame us." After the discussion, everyone calmly waited for Immortal to come up. About 5 minutes later, a figure suddenly appeared at the entrance of the cave. It was none other than Immortal. Everyone exchanged glances when they saw Immortal's elusive footwork. It meant that they shouldn't act rashly. The remaining 100 or so Heavenly Wood Sect and Heavenly Water Sect disciples were on the same side as the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. They were all secretly on guard but didn't act rashly. Chapter 4:14. The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples exchanged glances. How could they hide their little actions from the level 7 Long Yen Shi Immortal? He immediately plundered the memories of one of them and quickly knew what they were thinking. It turned out that these people were already suspecting that he had killed Yi Bufan. Since that was the case, there was no need for him to pretend anymore. Thinking of this, Emo looked around at the 200 heavenly gold trisect disciples around him. He sneered, "Since you want to kill me, I'm sorry." As he spoke, he used his mind. The next moment, a 100-meter-tall and 500-meter-long dragon shadow appeared behind him. Although it was just a shadow, its scales were distinct, and its eyes and nose were clear. It was as lifelike as a real dragon. The disciples of the celestial gold trisect turned pale with fright. No matter how many strange things they had experienced in the ancient dragon battlefield, they were not as shocked as seeing a 100-meter-long dragon shadow in front of them. In front of this huge creature, they seemed so small and weak. They were so weak that they could not even withstand a single blow. Moreover, this huge creature was terrifying not only because of its size, but also because of the domineering aura it emitted. Under this domineering aura, even the strongest level 7 desolate hunter among them did not dare to move. This was the strength of the Dragon Soul True Body. With Emo's current Dragon Soul True Body, perhaps only desolate hunters above level 8 could barely withstand it. Desolate hunters below level 8 did not even have the thought of running away. There was only one word left: fear. Since this guy was left here to be slaughtered, Emo naturally would not be polite. His right arm turned into a dragon claw. This time, it was not a skill. It was a real dragon claw. The next moment, the dragon claw swept out. Whoosh! An invisible force instantly flew towards the 200 people. Rip! There was a series of ripping sounds. These people did not have any intention of resisting at all. Under the tearing of the invisible force, these people were directly torn into pieces. They turned into a rain of blood that shone with a wine-red luster under the sunlight. At the same time, in Emo's mind, a number had already appeared. Kill points, 1851000. Since Emo had already started killing, he naturally would not miss out on anything. He teleported to the underground cavern. He used his telekinesis to investigate and found all the heavenly gold trisect disciples in the underground cavern. Then he killed them all. In his mind, the kill points increased again. Frowny face kill points, 2111000. In just a few seconds, the kill points had increased over 200. At this rate, it would not take long for it to evolve. The bloodthirsty demonic dragon's advancement was truly monstrous. Moreover, its evolution did not really matter was the level of its enemies. As long as you kill, you to kill would be counted over was kills to kill. In that case, there was no need for Emo to deal with those level 10 desolate hunters. Not only were level 10 desolate hunters strong, but they were also few in number. After killing these people, he took the 2 swords that they had obtained. Although he did not need them, it was not a bad choice to give them to his subordinates. Emo returned to the ground and withdrew his dragon's soul true body. The spirit-engulfing beast that had been following Emo was also quite frightened. It only heaved a sigh of relief when Emo withdrew his dragon's soul true body. It had a new understanding of this human in its heart. Previously, it only felt that this human was a little mysterious, but it did not feel that he was too special. Therefore, it thought that if there was a chance, it would run away. It even wanted to stab this human in the back when he was in danger. But now, after seeing the dragon's soul true body, especially after seeing this human kill so many humans without even batting an eye, it completely gave up on this idea. It was better to stay by his side obediently. Otherwise, if this human went crazy again, it would not be able to bear it. And the most fundamental reason was that when Emo released the giant dragon phantom, the spirit-engulfing beast felt a sense of familiarity with Emo. This made it not as disgusted with Emo as before. Because of these 2 reasons, it gave up on the idea of running away in the future. At this time, a tearing sound came from Emo's back, and a pair of wings stretched out. This pair of wings was about 5 meters wide. The shape was similar to a bat's wings. However, there were several large and small holes on the wings. This was not a skill, but his real demonic dragon wings. Although on the surface, The system did not give him any other benefits for this promotion. But in fact, as he evolved into the bloodthirsty demonic dragon, he had improved in all aspects. For example, the blood dragon wings had evolved into the demonic dragon wings. The demonic dragon wings could reach 10,000 meters per second when flying at top speed. Moreover, the demonic dragon wings were more flexible than the blood dragon wings. This gave him more space and maneuverability when fighting in the air. Moreover, the demonic dragon wings also added a defensive ability. This defensive ability was very abnormal. The demonic dragon wings protected the whole body and could withstand any physical and energy attack below the level of a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. At this time, Immortal stopped after flying at full speed for about 100 kilometers. He summoned the Sea Dragon clone and took out the Dragon Ball fragment. Then he threw the Dragon Ball fragment to the Sea Dragon clone. The Sea Dragon clone opened its mouth and swallowed it. In the next moment, the Sea Dragon clone's body changed again. The scales on its body were more metallic than before. Its body length also increased again, reaching a length of 1,500 meters. The thickest part of its body was more than 50 meters thick. The pair of lumps on its forehead also bulged a little. It seemed that something was about to be born from them. The pair of dragon whiskers also grew a little longer, reaching a length of more than 10 meters. He looked even more imposing than before. At this time, the Sea Dragon clone looked very excited. It kept twisting its body and waving its claws. It stretched its neck and let out an earth-shattering roar. Roar! In the entire second district, within a radius of hundreds of square kilometers, all the creatures heard this roar. They were all greatly shocked. One by one, they fell to the ground, their bodies trembling. As a result of swallowing the Dragon Ball fragment this time, the Sea Dragon clone's level also increased again. Species, Sea Dragon. Level 2 Strong Mutant Wild Beast, Ability. Expand. When Immortal saw this, he was secretly delighted. As long as he found another Dragon Ball fragment, would it be able to evolve into a real dragon? And looking at its size, it was not a Western dragon. It was going for the Eastern Dragon God. The Dragon God was an existence that was more awesome than the Western Dragon. It could ride the clouds and summon the rain. Just thinking about it made him a little excited. Immortal looked around and gave an order to the Sea Dragon avatar. Move about freely and explore the ancient dragon battlefield to see what's going on. Chapter 415. The Sea Dragon clone was shaped like a giant dragon. It was 1,500 meters long. If such a huge body was allowed to wander around the ancient dragon battlefield, it would be too eye-catching. Therefore, Immortal let it return to a size of only 20 meters. Then, the Sea Dragon clone rose into the air and disappeared into the distant sky. After the Sea Dragon clone swallowed the Dragon Pearl fragment, its flying ability had greatly improved. It didn't seem to have wings, nor did it walk on clouds like in the legends. No one knew how it could fly. But it could fly, and its speed was far beyond that of ordinary creatures. This was something Immortal couldn't understand at all. Since he didn't want to think about things that he couldn't figure out, Immortal stopped thinking about it. He continued to envelop the area with a radius of 350 kilometers with his dragon consciousness. As for whether the disciples of the Skygold sect, Skywood sect, and Xianxia sect would be found out and would be hunted down by the three sects, Immortal didn't care at all. To a certain extent, he even hoped that the three sects would hunt him down. And the more people there were, the better. The more people there were, the more kill points he could obtain. This was also a slight change in his temperament after evolving into the bloodthirsty demon dragon. In the past, he was very cautious. Basically, they would hide until they were strong enough to crush their opponents. Only then would they reveal their identities. But now, because of the influence of the bloodthirsty demon dragon, his state of mind had quietly changed. He had a desire to kill and fight. But this wouldn't cause him to go berserk. Between the bloodthirsty demon dragon and going berserk, there was the word demon. But there was a big difference. Going berserk meant that he had lost his mind and couldn't control his killing. If he really went berserk, he might even kill his family and friends. But the bloodthirsty demon dragon was rational. Although it was also bloodthirsty, it would plan and kill rationally. It wouldn't hurt its friends and family, and it wouldn't lose its life for the sake of killing. Next, Immortal continued to wander in the second district. During this time, he encountered some dragon spirits, but they were all devoured by the spirit-devouring beasts. Immortal was very curious about the spirit-devouring beast. To humans, dragon spirits were extremely powerful and terrifying existences. Humans basically had no way to deal with dragon spirits, not even grand desolate masters. The spirit-engulfing beast looked very weak, but it was the bane of dragon spirits. No matter how powerful the dragon spirit was, it could swallow it in one gulp. Immortal spent 3 days exploring the area with his dragon will. At the same time, the sea dragon clone also wandered around. He did a simple search of the second district. He didn't find anything else useful. Next, he headed towards the third zone. In the ancient dragon battlefield, District 3 was more dangerous than District 2. Other than having more dragon spirits, the creatures in the third division were also more powerful than those in the second division. There were even some level 8 and above mutated dire beasts in the third district. Therefore, after entering the ancient dragon battlefield, some of the desolate hunters below level 8 did not dare to enter District 3. However, Immortal did not care about this. On the surface, he looked like a level 2 desolate hunter. However, his true combat power was enough to deal with a level 7 desolate hunter. In addition, with the sea dragon clone's strength as a level 2 mutated dire beast, he could roam freely in District 3. At the same time, in the Skygold Trisect. After the Skygold sect's first elder sent out the message, no disciple responded. This made the first elder even angrier. That kid wanted to hide after killing his trusted disciple. If he was too naive, he could hide for a while, but could he hide forever? Moreover, the Skygold sect's influence in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud was beyond imagination. In addition, the Heavenly Wood sect, Heavenly Water sect, Heavenly Fire sect, and Heavenly Earth sect were all in cahoots with the Skygold sect. It was not difficult to find a person. As long as that kid was still in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud, he could be found. However, something else happened in the Skygold sect these few days. There were more than 300 disciples who went to the ancient dragon battlefield to train. However, there were only about 220 people who could be contacted. The Skygold sect had a rule that all disciples in the ancient dragon battlefield had to check in every 3 hours. However, 15 hours had passed, and there was still no news from these 70 disciples. Obviously, they must have met with some mishap. They investigated and found that these 70 disciples were sent to investigate the catacombs in Zone 2. Could it be that they met with some danger in the catacombs? Therefore, the Skygold sect quickly sent people to the catacombs. However, they found that the catacombs were already empty. The dragon spirits from before were nowhere to be seen. However, they found many bloodstains and pieces of cloth on the ground near the catacombs. Judging from these pieces of cloth, they should be the clothes of the Skygold sect, Heavenly Wood sect, and Heavenly Water sect disciples. Obviously, the disciples of the 3 sects had met with a powerful attack here. They did not even have time to send out a distress signal or activate the wormhole transportation device. At the same time, the same thing happened to the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect. After a comprehensive analysis, everyone discovered a terrifying fact. Firstly, the murderer was still fighting against the Skygold sect, Heavenly Wood sect, and Heavenly Water sect. It was obvious that he was not afraid of the 3 sections. Secondly, there were more than 200 disciples from the 3 sects who came to the catacombs. However, there were no signs of fighting at the scene. In other words, these 200 people were killed in an instant. They did not even have the chance to react. To be able to kill more than 200 desolate hunters in the blink of an eye. This person's ability was probably that of a level 10 desolate hunter. To be more daring, this person's ability might have already reached the level of a grand desolate master. The third elder of the Skygold sect, who was sent to investigate this matter, pondered for a moment before asking, Which level 8 and above powerhouses have come to the ancient dragon battlefield recently? The disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect who were guarding the entrance answered, "The other forces are afraid of our 3 sects and do not dare to enter the ancient dragon battlefield rashly." During this period, only one super powerhouse has come to the ancient dragon battlefield. Han Jianxing, who froze 16 states with a single sword. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed slightly. They had heard of the name, froze 16 states with a single sword, since decades ago. Could it be that Han Jianxing was the murderer? However, why would he kill the disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect for no reason? Could it be that he wanted to snatch the treasures in the catacombs? However, Han Jianxing was not someone who coveted treasures. He had no desires and was not interested in anything. The 3 sects had also warned their disciples many times to give way to Han Jianxing if they met him. Even if they could not, they had to give way. Hence, the disciples would not clash with Han Jianxing over a single treasure. Then who was it? Chapter 416. If it's not Han Jianxing, then who could it be? This question stumped everyone present. The 3rd elder of the Sky Gold sect glanced at the 2 elders of the Skywood sect and the Heavenly Water sect who had come to investigate. Finally, he looked back at the disciples of the 3 sects who were guarding the entrance. He asked, "Think about it carefully. Apart from Han Jianxing, are there any other experts who entered the ancient dragon battlefield? Not just recently, but also experts who have entered the ancient dragon battlefield in the past and have yet to come out." The disciples thought for a moment and shook their heads. The yin qi in the ancient dragon battlefield is too strong. That's why many people only stay for half a month before coming out. In the past month, the experts above level 8 who have entered the ancient dragon battlefield are all disciples of the 3 sections. As for the other factions, apart from Han Jianxing, there's also a Grand Desolate Master. But that Grand Desolate Master has already come out. The 3rd elder of the Sky Gold sect frowned. Could it be a mutated dire beast? But soon he rejected this idea. Although the ancient dragon battlefield was dangerous, there weren't many mutated dire beasts. Moreover, the strongest mutated dire beast in the 2nd zone was only level 7. It was impossible for it to tear so many people to pieces in such a short time. After a moment, he asked again, "Then think about it carefully. Recently, have there been any people from other forces that are not considered strong but have some strange abilities that have entered the ancient dragon battlefield?" The disciples shook their heads at first. Those who could enter the ancient dragon battlefield were not weak at all. But soon, someone thought of something and suddenly said, "Oh yes, a level 2 desolate hunter entered the ancient dragon battlefield." Everyone was stunned when they heard this. The ancient dragon battlefield was very dangerous. Generally speaking, only desolate hunters above level 5 would take the risk to enter the ancient dragon battlefield. As for the level 5 desolate hunters, entering the ancient dragon battlefield was basically a suicide mission. But now, a level 2 desolate hunter had entered the ancient dragon battlefield. Naturally, it was very strange. Everyone's eyes were focused on the disciple who spoke. The 3rd elder asked again, "You let a level 2 desolate hunter in?" The disciple shook his head and said, "We didn't want to. We didn't plan to let him in, but Han Jianxing came later. He even took the initiative to greet the level 2 desolate hunter. It seems like they have a good relationship. So we didn't dare to stop him." The disciple's voice became softer and softer as he spoke. They had indeed failed in their duties. At the very least, they should find out the relationship between that brat and Han Jianxing. However, they also had their own difficulties. At that time, Han Jianxing's aura was too strong. They didn't dare to say anything. The 3rd elder asked with a solemn expression, "What is his relationship with Han Jianxing? Are they very close, or just acquaintances?" The disciple stammered and finally said, "We're not too sure." At that time, he was the first to arrive, and Han Jianxing was right behind him. When Han Jianxing asked him if he had become a 2nd stage desolate hunter, he replied, "Yes." Then, Han Jianxing entered the ancient dragon battlefield. He followed us into the ancient dragon battlefield. The third elder of the Heavenly Gold sect fell silent again. Under such circumstances, it was really hard to determine the relationship between that brat and Han Jianxing. Han Jianxing came to the ancient dragon battlefield once a year, regardless of whether it was a low or high tide. He came here to pay his respects to his deceased wife. This wasn't strange. But where did that brat come from? What was his relationship with Han Jianxing? At this time, the elder of the Heavenly Water sect asked. That second stage Desolate Hunter and Han Jianxing entered the ancient dragon battlefield. Were they heading here? The disciple who answered shook his head at first, then nodded his head. The others were puzzled. What did he mean by nodding and shaking his head? The disciple replied, Han Jianxing went in the direction of the 4th district. He goes in that direction every year. But that second stage Desolate Hunter went in the direction of the 2nd district. At this point he suddenly paused. The rest of the crowd also came to their senses. A second stage Desolate Hunter dared to go into the 2nd district alone. There was definitely something strange about this. Moreover, this tragedy happened in the 2nd district and he was heading there. Obviously, he was the most suspicious. At this time, one of the disciples guarding the entrance seemed to have thought of something. He said, "Right now that I think about it, that second stage Desolate Hunter looks a bit like the murderer in the video message of the first elder a few days ago." Hearing this, the others felt a chill in their hearts. The third elder's voice suddenly became a lot harsher. "Why didn't you report this before?" The disciples all panicked. Before, he and Han Jianxing came at the same time. We thought they were related. Moreover, the third elder waved his hand. "We'll talk about your questions later. Everyone, retreat to the entrance immediately." Everyone immediately activated their hoverboards and flew towards the entrance. Since that brat had the strength to kill 200 Desolate Hunters in an instant, the disciples guarding the entrance naturally couldn't defend. Therefore, the third elder ordered everyone to reinforce the entrance. At the same time, the third elder secretly estimated the strength of himself and that brat. As a level 10 Desolate Hunter, even if he couldn't win against that brat, he wouldn't be killed by him. However, if that brat and Han Jianxing came at the same time, it would be troublesome. However, the first elder was the second in command of the Sky Gold sect after the sect master. He was someone who couldn't be offended. The first elder's personal disciple had been killed, so he naturally wanted to take revenge. Moreover, that brat had probably killed more than 70 Sky Gold sect disciples, as well as hundreds of Skywood sect and Heavenly Water sect disciples. This debt couldn't be let go just like that. Even if he had Han Jianxing behind him and couldn't take revenge on that brat, he had to at least ask for an explanation. Otherwise, the Sky Gold sect, Skywood sect and Heavenly Water sect, the top 3 forces in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud, would become a laughingstock. Thinking of this, the third elder reported this matter to the sect master of the Sky Gold sect. The sect master of the Sky Gold sect immediately ordered the first elder to bring more than 50 Desolate Hunters to the ancient dragon battlefield as reinforcements. At the same time, the 2 elders of the Skywood sect and Heavenly Water sect also reported to their sect masters. After all, more than 70 Desolate Hunters had died in their sections. One had to know that every Desolate Hunter was made up of countless resources. Now that 70 of them had died, it was definitely a heavy loss. Moreover, this matter was very likely related to Han Jianxing. If they didn't report this, how could the elders resist Han Jianxing? Chapter 417. When the elders of the Sky Gold, Skywood and Skywater sects realized that Han Jianxing might be involved, they immediately contacted their respective sections. After a discussion, the upper echelons of the 3 sects decided that each sect would send a Grand Desolate Master to the ancient dragon battlefield. If this matter had nothing to do with Han Jianxing, it would be good. If it did, then the 3 Grand Desolate Masters would be able to make Han Jianxing feel apprehensive. Of course, they did not know that Han Jianxing had already been promoted to a level 2 Grand Desolate Master. As for these 3 sects, all the 4 Grand Desolate Masters were only level 1 Grand Desolate Masters. In the end, the 3 grand desolate masters of the 3 sects led close to 500 desolate master disciples to guard the entrance for 3 days, but they did not see Mosher come out. Especially the Skygold sect's Grand Elder. He was eager to avenge his disciple and said to the Grand Desolate Masters of the other 2 sects, "You guys continue to guard here with your disciples. I'll go in and search." The Grand Desolate Masters of the other 2 sects wanted to stop him, but when they saw the Skygold sect's Grand Elder's determined gaze, they gave up. Many people said that Ibufan was actually the illegitimate son of the Skygold sect's Grand Elder. However, due to many complicated relationships, he could not admit it, so he could only accept Ibufan as his disciple. Now that his son had been killed, he was naturally furious. If they insisted on stopping him, he would probably be displeased. Therefore, the Grand Desolate Masters of the other 2 sects told the Skygold sect's Grand Elder to be careful and let him go. Seeing the Skygold sect's Grand Elder lead the 100 Desolate Masters into the depths of the ancient dragon battlefield, the 2 Grand Desolate Masters shook their heads. One of them said, "Nothing will happen to him, right?" The other said, "Although he's eager to avenge his disciple, he's not a young man without schemes. If he really meets Han Jianxing, I believe he knows what he's doing." The Grand Desolate Master sighed, "Sigh, I hope so." The Skygold sect's Grand Elder led the 100 Desolate Masters and flew towards District 2. They arrived at the edge of the underground cavern. Then he said to the disciples, "With this place as the center, spread out and search. Once you find traces of that kid, don't attack him. Contact me immediately." The group of disciples didn't dare to disobey and replied, "Yes." As they spoke, they spread out in all directions to search the area. However, as they searched, these disciples were somewhat on tenterhooks. Although they had the backing of a Grand Desolate Master, the murderer was an existence that could instantly kill over 200 desolate hunters. If that brat really went crazy, then they would be torn to shreds by that brat before Head Elder arrived at all. But now that things had come to this, how could they dare to disobey the Great Elder's orders? They could only continue to search the area. At this time, Mosher had already thoroughly investigated District 2. He didn't find anything else of value here, so he set off for District 3. The third zone of the ancient dragon battlefield was a lake. There were over 1,000 lakes of various sizes here. The large ones were tens of thousands of square kilometers, while the small ones were only slightly more than 1,000 square meters. So many lakes formed a huge group of lakes. These lakes were more than 10,000 meters deep. In these lakes, water plants crisscrossed. If he wanted to go down for a swim, it was very likely that he would be entangled by the aquatic plants. From the looks of it, there weren't any mountains or forests here, so there didn't seem to be any danger. However, since this place was classified as District 3, it meant that it was more dangerous than District 2. Therefore, Mosher didn't relax in the slightest. He first used his draconic sense to completely investigate the area within a radius of 350 kilometers. He found that the surface seemed to be very safe, and there wasn't any danger. He then controlled his draconic sense to investigate these lakes. In his investigation, he found that there were many skeletons in these lakes. These skeletons weren't complete. After an unknown amount of time, many of the skeletons had been corroded by the microorganisms in the lake water and water until they were full of holes. However, according to the location of these skeletons, after a rough reconstruction, he found that these skeletons were basically the skeletons of dragons. The small ones were only about 50 meters long, while the large ones were more than 1,000 meters long. All of the skeletons were basically incomplete. However, he could occasionally detect that some of the skeletons still had the skull of a dragon. Their sharp and thick teeth, their angular brow bones, and the dozens of sharp bone spurs on their heads. All of them described the might, power, and dominance of this dragon when it was alive. These dragon skeletons all had a certain research value. One of them could be sold for a lot of money. However, Mosher didn't care about this small amount of money. After inheriting almost all the property of the owner of Hunting Island No. 1, Mosher wasn't short of money at all now. In his eyes, money was just a string of numbers. Therefore, his current focus wasn't on these things. He was looking for one thing, the Dragon Ball fragments. He already had 2 Dragon Ball fragments. If he swallowed another one, the Sea Dragon avatar should be able to evolve into a real Eastern Divine Dragon. However, after flying over this group of lakes for half a day and investigating for half a day, he still didn't find any Dragon Ball fragments. It seemed that he was overthinking. According to legend, it seemed that only Eastern Divine Dragons had Dragon Balls in their bodies. As for Western dragons, he didn't seem to have heard of any Dragon Balls. And the dragon skeletons in these lakes seemed to belong to Western dragons. It was normal that there were no Dragon Balls. After searching in District 3 for another 2 days, Immortal even condensed his virus avatar and entered these lakes. In the end, he didn't find anything. This made him feel a little strange. According to the memories of all the disciples of the Heavenly Gold Trisect, District 3 should be more dangerous than District 2, and there should be more treasures to be obtained. However, there was neither danger nor any treasure to be obtained here. This was very strange. However, since he couldn't figure it out for the time being, Immortal simply stopped thinking about it. Instead, he continued to head to more dangerous places. However, not long after Immortal left, the largest lake in the group of lakes seemed to suddenly light up. Looking down from the sky, this lake seemed to be a window. At night, someone used a flashlight to flash through this window. However, it only lit up for a moment and soon dimmed again. As if nothing had happened. Immortal left the 3rd zone and headed towards the most dangerous zone, the 4th zone. After arriving here, Immortal's vigilance was much higher. Whether it was the map he obtained or the memories he plundered from those people, District 4 was extremely dangerous. The danger was not only because there were some powerful mutated wild beasts here, but also because there were many dragon spirits here. Chapter 418. From the map and the memories of the Sky Gold Sect disciples, Immortal knew that the 4th zone was the most dangerous zone in the ancient dragon battlefield. Therefore, as soon as he arrived here, he raised his guard. The spirit-engulfing beast beside him also lowered its body and looked around nervously from time to time. However, to Immortal's surprise, this place was not as creepy as he had imagined. On the contrary, it was a large grassland. The grass was not very tall, only reaching his knees. There were large patches of wild flowers in the grass. Red, blue, yellow, purple, and white. A breeze blew and the flowers nodded. A large river meandered through the grassland. It looked like a jade belt under the sunlight. Not far away, there were a few birds with beautiful feathers. They flew in the sky for a while and then disappeared into the flowers. The sun was shining brightly and the flowers were fragrant. No matter what, no one would associate this place with the ancient dragon battlefield. Immortal probed with his dragon will and soon found a figure sitting on the bank of the river more than 200 kilometers away. His face was full of whiskers and there was a giant technological sword beside him. This person was none other than Han Jianxing. At this moment, Han Jianxing was holding a wine jug and facing the river. He raised his head and took a sip from time to time. Beside him was a grave filled with weeds and wildflowers. In front of the grave was a stone tablet that was taller than a person. There were 4 words written on it: Tomb of the Deceased Wife. The name of the tomb owner was not engraved, nor was the person who had set up the tablet. Han Jianxing came to this city once a year to mourn for his deceased wife. It was admirable indeed. At this moment, Han Jianxing might have already known that Immortal was here. However, he did not seem to care at all. At this moment, he did not want to be disturbed by anyone. Immortal did not intend to disturb him either. He continued to probe nearby. At the same time, more than 200 kilometers behind Immortal, the first elder of the Sky Gold sect had brought more than 100 disciples to the edge of the 4th zone. A disciple said, "First elder, according to the life detector we left behind, that guy has entered the 4th zone. Should we follow him?" The first elder of the Heavenly Gold sect said, "Yes, why not?" That disciple still wanted to say something, but another disciple beside him tugged at the corner of that disciple's clothes. The disciple could only swallow his words. However, everyone else was thinking the same thing as him. Ever since they knew about the ancient dragon battlefield, they had heard that District 4 of the ancient dragon battlefield was terrifying. Every elder warned them, if you have the chance to go to the ancient battlefield of the great dragon in the future, don't enter District 4 without careful consideration. Therefore, now that the great elder had allowed them to enter, they felt somewhat uneasy. But head elder's orders, they did not dare to defy either. He could only grit his teeth and follow the first elder into the 4th district. As he walked, he silently comforted himself. With the Grand Elder, the Grand Desolate Master, there shouldn't be any problems. The Great Elder wasn't stupid. Although his heart was filled with anger and hatred, he did not let it get to his head. He knew that although the ancient dragon battlefield was terrifying, it was currently at a low ebb and was not as scary as before. Moreover, the scariest part of the ancient dragon battlefield was only at night. During the day, this place was no different from any other ordinary place in the outside world, since there were various signs that indicated that this kid had gone to District 4. Naturally, he had to let his disciples follow him in to search before the sky turned dark. After about 2 hours, a level 10 psychic master from the Skygold sect suddenly said, "Found him." The disciples of the Skygold sect were stunned. The Skygold sect's great elder immediately ordered, "Lead the way." The level 10 psychic master replied, "Yes." Then he quickly flew forward. The 100 or so disciples of the Skygold sect immediately followed. After a while, they saw Immortal stopping in the middle of the grassland. Moreover, Immortal did not panic at all when he saw them. Instead, he looked at them with a smile. This made them somewhat puzzled. The Skygold sect's great elder's eyes were filled with anger. "Kid, did you kill my disciple Ibufan?" Immortal was facing a Grand Desolate Master who was almost a level higher than him. He calmly nodded and said, "Yes." Everyone was stunned. Ordinary people would not be able to speak properly when they met a Grand Desolate Master. This kid was not afraid of killing a Grand Desolate Master's disciple and even dared to admit it. Was he crazy? The Skygold sect's great elder's face turned colder. He asked in a deep voice, "Did you kill the 70 or so disciples of the Skygold sect?" Immortal smiled again and said, "Yes." Hearing this, everyone from the Skygold sect was dumbfounded. There were not many people who dared to offend the Skygold sect. This kid had killed the Skygold sect's disciples and even admitted it in front of so many of them. He was really about to go crazy. Although the Skygold sect's great elder was furious, he thought to himself, "This kid is so confident because he has Han Jianxing behind him." But now that things have come to this, he could not care less. "I'll take him down and make him suffer. I'll make a decision when Han Jianxing really shows up." Having this thought, his aura burst out from his body. All the wild flowers and weeds within a 10-kilometer radius were pressed against the ground by his aura. Some rocks that had been weathered over time were turned into dust by his aura. The aura of a Grand Desolate Master was so terrifying. But at this moment, Longwei's aura suddenly spread out from Immortal's body. In an instant, the disciples of the Skygold sect with a lower cultivation level knelt on the ground. Even the disciples with a higher cultivation level could not help but feel the urge to kneel on the ground and worship Lin Fan. Even the Skygold sect's great elder felt the urge to worship Lin Fan. He could not help but feel shocked. What the hell was this kid doing? Lin Fan was clearly weaker than him, and his aura was even more different. Why did he suddenly feel the urge to worship Lin Fan? He naturally did not know that Immortal's Longwei did not care about how strong one was. It was a kind of suppression between species. Since ancient times, dragons had been the most mysterious and powerful creature in the universe. Any living creature would unconsciously have the urge to submit when encountering a dragon. However, the stronger the creature, the weaker the urge to submit. The Skygold sect's great elder thought that this urge to submit came from his fear of Han Jianxing, who was behind Immortal. He could not help but feel a little angry. Han Jianxing was like a mountain. For so many years, he had been above all the forces in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. He had left them breathless. Now that they were in the ancient dragon battlefield, He was still suppressing them. If there came a day where he could raise his strength to another level, he would definitely kill this Han Jianxing. Chapter 419. The great elder of the Sky Gold sect led more than 100 disciples to find Mo. Mo didn't panic at all. Instead, he calmly admitted that he was the one who had done everything. At the same time, he released his Long Way. The Long Way now wasn't the Long Way that had been cultivated in the Dragon's Cave. It was the Long Way that Mo had released after he evolved into the bloodthirsty demon dragon. Humans were considered a very weak species in front of dragons. Even a grand desolate master was much weaker in front of a real dragon. The great elder of the Sky Gold sect naturally had the urge to worship Lin Huang. However, he was a grand desolate master after all. In terms of cultivation level, he was almost an entire realm higher than Mo. Very quickly, he suppressed the urge to worship Lin Huang. "Humph, you're just trying to mystify me." He let out a loud shout, and his imposing aura burst out once again, pressing down on Mo. He was facing the aura of an expert who was almost an entire realm higher than him. Even Mo didn't dare to face it head-on. He had already planned to summon the Sea Dragon clone. The fourth zone was more dangerous. Therefore, he had already recalled the Sea Dragon clone the moment he entered the fourth zone and let it enter his personal reservoir. Once there was danger, he would summon it immediately. However, just as the great elder of the Sky Gold sect's aura was about to press down on Mo, at this moment, an even stronger aura suddenly pressed down on the great elder of the Sky Gold sect. That aura was far stronger than the great elder of the Sky Gold sect. The great elder of the Sky Gold sect's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly retracted the aura that was pressing down on Mo. At the same time, a Long Way that was 100 times larger than Mo's Long Way suddenly attacked. Long Way wasn't like aura that could form substantial pressure. It was formless, and didn't have any destructive power. It was elegant, intellectual, approachable, or sloppy and wretched. In essence, it wouldn't cause any harm to others. However, Long Way was able to create an extremely strong psychological pressure on creatures other than the Dragon Clan. Mo had just evolved into a giant dragon, but his Long Way was already able to make opponents who were almost an entire realm higher than him feel the urge to worship him. One could only imagine how much of an impact a Long Way that was 100 times stronger than his Long Way would have on his opponent's psyche. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect were terrified when they saw Long Way. The timid ones fell straight to the ground. Those who were braver also knelt on the ground one after another. All of them were trembling in fear, not even daring to raise their heads. Only the great elder of the Heavenly Gold sect, a level 1 grand desolate master, could barely remain standing. However, in the face of Long Way, they felt as if they were standing in front of an ancient behemoth. In front of this colossus, even though he was a level 1 grand desolate master, he was still insignificant. This gigantic creature only needed to move its claws slightly to crush him into dust. Furthermore, when this colossus moved its claws, he couldn't even think of resisting. He didn't even have the thought of running away. Most importantly, this feeling made him panic. One had to know that in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, a level 1 grand desolate master was already the pinnacle of existence. Ever since he became a level 1 grand desolate master, in the past 50 years, he had never felt the fear of being dominated. However, he felt it now. If that was the case, how strong was this kid? However, he soon forced himself to stay alert. This kid was just a level 2 grand desolate master. How could he be so strong? Furthermore, it didn't seem like Han Jianxing was behind this. In his opinion, Han Jianxing was also a level 1 grand desolate master. At the same level as him. Even if Han Jianxing's battle strength was much higher than his, it was impossible for him to feel such a strong sense of oppression. This brat must have used some kind of method to deceive them. He looked at Mo. He saw that Mo didn't feel the slightest bit of pressure. That's right, this kid must be playing tricks on me. Thinking of this, he said sternly, "Disciples of the Sky Gold sect, listen up. This kid is acting mysterious." As long as we overcome the fear in our hearts, he's just a desolate paper beast. However, after he finished speaking, none of the Sky Gold sect disciples responded. He turned around and saw that all the Sky Gold sect disciples were kneeling on the ground, trembling. They didn't even dare to raise their heads. The Sky Gold sect Grand Elder was dumbfounded. What was going on? Was this kid so terrifying? At the same time, Immortal was also dumbfounded. He didn't do anything. What was wrong with these guys? At this moment, a shadow slowly rose from the ground behind Immortal. It was a huge shadow that was 1,000 meters long and 800 meters wide. This phantom looked like a giant dragon. Its head, claws, tail, eyes, and scales could all be seen clearly. Although it was just a shadow, it gave off a strong sense of deterrence. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect trembled in fear when they saw this scene. Giant dragon, evil spirit. Giant dragon, evil spirit. It's over. It's over. Run, run. The moment they saw the dragon's soul, everyone's expression changed drastically. Giant dragon evil spirits were different from dragon spirits. Dragon spirits were the combination of dragon consciousness and energy. Giant dragon evil spirits were formed when the energy in the dragon's body didn't dissipate immediately after the dragon died. This energy wrapped around the dragon's consciousness and left it behind. Over time, this consciousness gradually became chaotic. Only the dragon's instinct to kill and devour was left. This was known as a giant dragon evil spirit. A giant dragon evil spirit had terrifying energy. Humans like them couldn't fight against it at all. Moreover, the evil spirit only had the instinct to kill and devour. Therefore, as long as the evil spirit didn't dissipate, it would kill and devour endlessly. However, the giant dragon evil spirit would only appear at night. After all, it was an evil spirit and was a little afraid of sunlight. Why would this giant dragon evil spirit appear in broad daylight? Seeing this, the Sky Gold sect Grand Elder hurriedly shouted, "Run!" In the next moment he turned and fled first. When the rest of the Sky Gold sect disciples saw this, they all turned and fled. At this moment, the giant dragon evil spirit spread its wings and swooped down. It spat out a mouthful of dragon breath at the humans below. Its dragon breath was an enormous amount of energy. Boom, 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 boom. Explosions rang out continuously within a radius of 10 kilometers. Smoke and dust filled the air as sparks flew everywhere. The beautiful grassland that had been like a paradise just now instantly turned into a battlefield. The Sky Gold sect disciples who were attacked immediately screamed as they were sent flying. With just one attack, more than 10 Heavenly Gold sect disciples had been killed. The remaining Sky Gold sect disciples were severely injured even if they weren't killed. Even the Sky Gold sect Grand Elder was sent flying 1,000 meters away by the shockwave of the explosion. Chapter 420. Even the first elder of the Sky Gold sect, a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, was sent flying 1,000 meters away by the energy attack of the dragon evil spirit. As for the other disciples of the Sky Gold sect, they were all sent flying as well. Most of them were injured. More than 10 desolate hunters died on the spot. When Immortal saw this scene, he immediately became anxious. That's right, he wasn't scared. He was panicking. These Heavenly Gold sect disciples were the kill points that he had already decided on. Other than him, no one else was allowed to kill the Sky Gold sect disciples. He would fight whoever killed him. At that moment, the colossal dragon evil spirit flapped its wings and flew towards Immortal after using its energy to send the Heavenly Gold sect disciples flying. Through its illusory body, one could see that the energy had already gathered in its abdomen. Then, it moved from its abdomen to its throat. Finally, it gathered in its mouth. It was now less than 5,000 meters away from Immortal. 5,000 meters sounded very far. But for the 1,000-meter-long dragon evil spirit, 5,000 meters was enough for it to launch an attack. On its illusory head, the huge mouth opened like a cave that had been sealed for thousands of years. Between its sharp fangs and scarlet tongue, the fiery red energy had already gathered into a white color. White hot. The next moment, boom, the white-hot energy spread out in a fan shape. With the dragon's mouth as the center, it swept through the space with a radius of 5,000 meters. The Sky Gold sect disciples heaved a sigh of relief when they saw this. This kid was dead meat. As long as this kid died, they could immediately activate the wormhole transportation device and leave this godforsaken place. They had had enough of this godforsaken place. Seeing this, the first elder of the Sky Gold sect felt the anger in his chest rising up to his throat. He was about to vent his anger. This kid had killed more than 70 elite disciples of the Sky Gold sect. Most importantly, he had killed his son. Now, he was finally going to die. It was a pity that he couldn't kill him personally. He had let him off too easily. Just as the energy was about to reach Immortal suddenly stopped. Immortal used his mind. A knife appeared in his hand. The knife looked very ordinary. It was like the knife used by the butchers during the Lunar New Year. The handle of the saber was wrapped in a dirty white cloth. The unique characteristic of this saber could only be described in one word: big. The broadest part of the blade was more than 2 feet wide. The blade was actually more than 2 meters long. Dragon Salyer. Immortal held the dragon Salyer in his hand, and more than half of the energy in his body crazily poured into the dragon Salyer. Other than being big, the ordinary-looking dragon Salyer was actually shining at this moment. Furthermore, the closer the energy of the giant dragon evil spirit got, the brighter the light of the dragon Salyer became. It was like a lighthouse in the dark night. The darkness was overwhelming, as if it was going to swallow the entire world. But Lighthouse was not afraid. It did its best to release its light, tearing the darkness apart. In the next strike, Immortal raised the dragon-slaughtering saber above his head. Perpendicular to the ground, it slashed down toward the overwhelming energy. In the next moment, a chaotic energy that seemed black and white, yet was neither black nor white, surged out from the dragon-slaughtering saber. Whoosh! This energy was in the shape of an arc. His momentum was extremely fast. As soon as it appeared, it disappeared. It was as if it had never appeared. However, the energy of the giant dragon evil spirit that was originally attacking Immortal from all directions suddenly stopped when it was only half a meter away from Immortal. This feeling was as if a tsunami was attacking you from all directions, but it suddenly stopped when it was half a meter away from you. It was extremely dangerous, but the scene looked very mysterious. Moreover, even the giant dragon evil spirit in the sky 5,000 meters away suddenly stopped. It was as if someone had used a camera to freeze this scene. But 3 seconds later, a crack appeared in the center of the energy that covered the sky and the earth. This crack was not wide. It was only about 10 centimeters. However, it connected the sky and the earth, as if it was going to split the world apart. In the next moment, the energy that covered the sky and the earth instantly dissipated between heaven and earth. It was as if the dark clouds that covered the sky and the earth just now had vanished into thin air in front of a gust of wind. At the same time, in the sky 5 kilometers away, the 1,000-meter-long giant dragon evil spirit was also split into 2 halves. Accompanied by a long wail, the giant dragon evil spirit also disappeared into thin air. In an instant, the world became clear. It was as if the giant dragon evil spirit had never appeared. It was as if Immortal was the only one left in the whole world. Carrying the dragon-slaying saber on his shoulder, he stood against the wind. His entire face seemed to be engraved with 2 big words: pretentious. When the disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect saw this, they all looked at Immortal in disbelief. This guy, is he a human or a god? He actually killed the giant dragon evil spirit. From the moment they knew about the giant dragon evil spirit, everyone had warned them that the giant dragon evil spirit was a very powerful existence. Even a level 1 desolate hunter like the Great Elder could only take a detour when encountering the giant dragon evil spirit. When these desolate hunters encountered the giant dragon evil spirit, they had no other choice but to use the wormhole teleportation device to escape. But now, this guy actually withstood the giant dragon evil spirit's breath and killed it with a single slash. This was 2F** King exaggerated. Most importantly, when this guy was fighting, they could clearly feel that this guy's aura was only that of a level 2 desolate hunter. One had to know that they were basically level 7 or level 8 desolate hunters. In their eyes, a level 2 desolate hunter was simply an ant. But now, this ant actually killed the giant dragon evil spirit with a single slash. They had never dared to brag like this in their lives. This guy actually did it. This was really too exaggerated. As for the Heavenly Gold Sect's Great Elder, he was even more shocked. The stronger one was, the more one could feel the power of the giant dragon evil spirit. Most importantly, the giant dragon evil spirit did not have a body. It was completely a mixture of soul and energy. Therefore, it could not be killed at all. Even if you slashed it with a saber, it could still recover. Even if you blasted it with energy, it could still recover. Even if you fought until you were exhausted and died of exhaustion, you would still not be able to kill it. This was the scariest part about it. Therefore, when encountering a giant dragon evil spirit, the most rational thing to do was to take a detour. But now, this guy actually killed the giant dragon evil spirit with a single slash. How could a mere level 2 desolate hunter be so powerful? Common sense told him that this was simply impossible. While he was still in shock, his gaze fell on the large saber that Immortal was carrying on his shoulder. It was an ordinary-looking broadsword. On the surface, even the most insignificant disciple of the Heavenly Gold Sect would not be interested in this saber. But it was this saber that had split the energy of the giant dragon evil spirit and killed it instantly. Then, this saber was the main reason why this guy could kill the giant dragon evil spirit in an instant. Thinking of this, greed flashed across the Heavenly Gold Sect's Great Elder's eyes. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.